Show, Tom Show, Tom Show. Hi, everyone. It's Tom with a very, very special guest, Sooz, Yanks chick. Everyone knows Sooz. How are you, Sooz?
I'm good, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I told you a little bit ago that I was nervous. I'm nervous because you're a well-respected member of the hobby, and I'm a goofball with 2 pairs of glasses on and a Snoopy hat. So I worry that like you're my first impression of you, and I found out that my first impression was wrong, was that you were a very like serious person. But
I'm a very serious person.
Yeah, I'm
serious.
Through our mutual I don't have my nails done, unfortunately. I was hoping to get them done today, but we are in the nails and cardboard club together, and I found out that Sooz is very different than what I actually thought she was. And it's a great thing, and that's why I love doing this show, is because you might think like, here's a serious writer and a serious person in our hobby industry, and nope, she's just a goofball like the rest of us. So buddy chasing the graph, he's in my wrestling group, he's saying hello. So Sooz, just tell us about yourself.
I'm Sooz, as people know. I am a card collector. I love cards. I've been collecting cards, my whole life, kind of thing. I've been working in the industry for a decade now, which, I realized this year it's been 10 years since I started working in the hobby. So that's what's really cool to, work in this industry, because, not many people get to make their hobby into a living, and I got to do that, and it's super exciting. I'm a mom of a cutie patootie who's 5 years old, and we get the collecting bug together. He loves Pokemon now, and we pretty much open Pokemon literally every single day. Not even exaggerating. And that's because I just keep buying it, because I have so much fun opening it with him that I just constantly buy it. And I've spent more money on this year and it's only February 1st, but I've spent more money this year on Pokemon cards than I have on like my own collection.
That's awesome. I was gonna say, doesn't your son want to do like a YouTube channel of himself opening the Pokemon cards?
Yeah, so we record the videos because like he wants to do it. So we record the videos and he watches them back and he loves it. And he's funny because he's like, "Hello, everybody." He's like, "We're here today and we're opening up, whatever box we have." And he's opening the packs. And the thing is, he my son, I'm the type I love the anticipation of things. So like I love baseball because there's the anticipation part of it, right? There's nothing more exciting than that moment before a pitch is released. I love that. You open a pack of cards, like there's nothing more exciting than that moment where you're tearing that. Right? He hates that. He's the complete opposite. He gets crazy and anxious, and he doesn't want to. He can't open the pack himself. He needs me to open it and show him the cards because he gets so amped up about what's coming next. And
that sounds amazing. I actually want to watch these videos.
Yeah, that's what they won't see the light of day. They'll live, But he gets so crazy about it, and when we pull something, he's like, and he's like hyperventilating. He's like, "Oh, I'm so excited!" I'm like, this poor kid.
Oh, that sounds a lot like my niece a few years ago. She was 6, and she came to stay with us, and she wanted to do unboxing videos. And I had done YouTube videos for sports cards back in like 2012, and she's like, "I want to do unboxing videos." So we bought her LOL dolls and stuff, and so she can do it. And I changed my channel completely around for that. And it's so cute to watch like little kids, think when they're on like, "Hi guys, and let's get right into it." It's just so cute.
And they're following, he watches YouTube. We let him watch YouTube, but like it's never by himself. Like I'm watching it with him.
Yeah.
He has his favorite sort of like Pokemon break. As he's watching Pokemon breaks, and he has his favorite Pokemon breakers. So he like emulates them, and he's like, okay. And like he watches Breaking Nate on YouTube. So at the end, he's like, "Okay, and we are ending on, can I get a drum roll, please?" Because that's what Nate does. He's like, "Drum roll, please." And he's like, boom, 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 boom. And then he's like, oh, and he pulls, and if it's a good card, he'd be like, yeah, and if it's a bad card, he's like, whatever Pokemon it is, he'd be like, Jigglypuff, you ruined the party. And I'm like, okay. And then his closing is different. His closing, he goes, okay, everybody. He's like, let's get a thumbs up. And the video's all done. Everybody, we needed that. Everybody needed to know the video was all done. Because without that, we would have just sat here and continued to watch.
Oh, I'm so my face hurts from smiling too much.
It's fun. I get a kick out of it, which is why I keep doing it. And that's why I'm like, yes, I bought more. I bought more Pokemon. Let's do more video.
Absolutely. A lot of my shows, like Garrett Frederking, he's here. He says, if you don't mind, drop your channel. I'll sub just to watch your little one. Yeah, they're not actually going to put them up yet. Yeah, it's just for fun.
Only 5. We're not comfortable with that just yet. Mm-hmm. So right now they just live on our computer.
Yeah, which is great because he can go back and watch them, and he doesn't he's gonna have fun doing that. So how did you yourself originally get into the collecting of the cards?
Yeah, as a kid, my older brother and cousin, they collected baseball cards, and they would try to trade them back and forth with each other, but they wouldn't give me any, so that wasn't very nice. So then at times my mom would send me to the but like the deli up the block or the bodega or something. She'd be like, go buy some milk or whatever we need for the house. And at the time, with the change, packs were only $0.25. I could take that quarter and buy a pack of cards. That's what let's throw this little pack in that's on the next to the register. And, I would be searching for Yankees cards because I'm a huge Yankees fan. So that's where my collecting started. And then just kept going and just blossomed from there.
You work in the hobby now. You used to work for Topps, and now you work for Golden. How did you get, started with that career path?
Yeah. So it started because I created a blog in about 2007. My friend Marie and I created a blog. It was called A Cardboard Problem. Still exists. You can still find it online, acardboardproblem.com. There's no new content on there, and maybe one day there will be soon, but right now there's no new content. But we created this blog because, for me, I was a sports journalist. I spent, was doing that for about 10 years. And, it was like, I love collecting and I love writing. Here's a good way to sort of mesh my passions together. And I did, and created the blog. And after doing that for a couple of years, Chris Olds at Beckett, he was the baseball editor at the time, and was like, hey, do you want to do some freelance work for us? Like I know you know how to write, and I know you know cards. So I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, I'd love to write for Beckett. And I did freelance for them for 2 years. Then after that, I got a job with them, and I actually was their hockey, football, and basketball editor of their magazines. And I did that for 2 years. And I saw a job at Topps. I lived in New York. I did not work in Texas with Beckett. I'm from New York. Yeah. And Topps is based in New York, and I saw a job at Topps. I reached out to, somebody I knew from there because I had met them through working at Beckett, and was like, hey, what's up with this job? And, went and interviewed, got the job, and was there for 5 years. Left, took a sort of hobby industry break for about 18 months, and went to Golden. And now I'm here.
Yeah. What do you do for Golden, if you don't mind me asking?
So I work on the sort of marketing and content team. Currently, a lot of my job involves sort of strategy of marketing and coming up with ideas and helping to, different ways to promote our auctions, our items in our auctions, or anything along that nature. It's a lot of sort of interdepartmental communicating and making sure that everybody is well aware what this one is doing and what that one is doing, and then how can we help each other and become a cross-functional team kind of thing.
Yeah, because they have a lot going on, with everything. I've seen you post about it, because it's not just cards; it's video games and comic, all these collectibles. It's not just the sports card thing. So it's kind of fun to see how everyone's growing. Even companies are growing and expanding their collecting universes, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, collectibles are hot. Collectibles, it doesn't have to, it's not just cards, that. It's it's, memorabilia, or it's like you said, the video games get hot, and it's people buying VHS tapes. It's like that nostalgia factor always is a big thing with collectibles. So once something I feel like once something kind of hits like a 30-year mark, suddenly it can be a collectible. So like maybe in like 10, 15 years, like all of a sudden, like, oh, DVDs, maybe it's only a collectible.
I have
Um,
a whole bookshelf full of DVDs, so I'm hoping DVDs do take off.
fingers
Uh,
crossed.
but yeah, so Tan fan baseball, he does the custom cards and stuff. He's such an awesome guy. He's posting those muscle wrestling little figures that were like just pink,
Yeah.
and I'm like, God damn it, I gotta go on eBay and look and see how much they are, because I was like, I used to have so many of those, and now I want them back. So yeah, it's great to see everyone just sharing everything that they loved as a kid, and we're just like reminding each other. Yeah, Ian Sports Cards, he's here, and yeah, he said it's his entire reason for being in the hobby. I think for a lot of people, that's what it was. I got back in like 2011 because my little brother was like, "Hey, I'm collecting cards again." And I was like, "Okay, I will too," because I've always been cards. I've always been a collector, comics, video games, cards, whatever, toys. So it was just natural when he's like, "I want to do this." I was like, "Well, I have someone. I'm going to do it." How did you get into baseball?
I always loved baseball. I loved baseball as a kid. Like, I was always a big Yankees fan. I remember I was in fourth grade one day, and it's just a memory of like one of my earliest baseball memories. And back then, world was not as crazy, or at least we didn't think it was as crazy. And it was in the fourth grade, and I got to go home for lunch every day if I wanted to, because I lived close enough to the school that I could walk home. So I went home, and there was a pizza shop nearby. And my mom sends me to the pizza shop. Clearly, she just sends me everywhere. And my mom sent me to the pizza shop, which is like 2 blocks away. And it was a day game, and they had the Yankees game on. And I remember Don Mattingly was up. And I was just like, oh, he's either going to strike out or hit a home run here. I was like, he's been kind of streaky lately. I'm in the fourth grade, and he hits a home run. And I know but it's just like one of my earliest memories. I just always loved baseball. It's just my thing.
I did too. I was never good at sports, physically, mentally, like I knew the rules, I knew how to play, I knew like where to line up and all that, but physically not gifted as a kid. But t-ball and baseball, I was playing those, and I loved them so much. And yeah, just naturally, baseball is a calming game for me. Yes, there is a lot of excitement when things get intense, but for the most part, I just like to sit on my couch and like watch a baseball game. There's just something really nice about it. It's just, football's intense, and nothing is more intense than playoff hockey for me, so a sport like, baseball, you're just like, okay. And then you're like, okay. So, you did the editing for Beckett, you said, for the other 3 major sports.
Mm-hmm.
Do you watch them regularly?
Yeah, I mean, I watch football every Sunday, even when my team is terrible, like the Giants. I still watch them every Sunday. I'll watch whatever game is on when it comes to football.
Mm-hmm.
I before I realized the Rangers were pretty hot this year, I started watching them again. And I say again because I watched them for a long time, and then I kind of just fell off of hockey for a little while. And then I jumped back into it again. So I have the Rangers game on in the other room right now. So I do like hockey. And I've been trained. I used to be a huge NBA fan, like huge NBA fan back in the day. And like, but when they had it was like I forget what year it was, but when they had the lockout back in the 90s, it kind of just like, I didn't come back for a long time, and it was tough for me to come back. So I kind of like, I still follow it to a point. And if nothing is else on, I'll put the Knicks game on, because like, I just really watch sports on TV. I don't really watch much of anything else. So I'll put the Knicks on if there's nothing else on, but NBA still hasn't gotten me back yet.
That's kind of the same for me. Always like to watch baseball. My family were Cardinals fans, so started out like kind of the Cardinals, and then it was kind of like the Cubs and the A's because of the Bash Brothers, and the Cubs because I could watch, because I grew up in Tennessee. We didn't really have anything there at the time. And then, it became, okay, with all the Rockies are here, I'm a Rockies fan. But yeah, I just, love baseball. I got my Broncos. I liked my Broncos when we lived in Tennessee. I picked them out. So when we moved out here, it was just kind of a bonus. Like, oh, now I can watch the team I chose. So that was good. Hockey for me is my second favorite sport with the Avs. But like you with the lockout when basketball, in the 90s, it was for me like in the early 2000s when hockey had that big lockout and then they did the rule change and had that crazy salary cap. I kind of fell out of hockey for a while because, well, the Avalanche couldn't buy, their way into the playoffs anymore. So it was kind of like, oh, crap. But I want to, you do something that everybody loves. You do your card chat on Wednesday nights. How did that come about?
I started when I was working at Beckett. Like it was, we were looking for different ways to try to engage like audiences on social media. Like when it came to the hobby, social media was still sort of a burgeoning place for, that kind of interaction. Now it's everywhere, but like we're talking 2012, this was 10 years ago. So, I created card chat back then and it sort of, and not much about it has changed even from then. I ask, it started on Mondays. It was actually on Mondays. And then I moved, and Mondays was actually just way too hard for me because with every life, like it's just too hard.
Yeah.
So I moved it to Wednesdays at 8:00, and which is a better time for me. I don't care about anybody else. I only care about myself. So you get it for me. And so I ask, I take an hour, and starting at 8:00, every 10 minutes, I ask a new question on a certain topic. And there's 6 questions throughout the hour. And, it's really fun because I get to, a lot of it I used to like pick people's brains. Like I love it because nobody agrees, and not in a bad way. Like nobody agrees, but it's not a negative thing. It's like, the hobby, it's like, okay, the hobby, right? But there's so many different facets of it and so many different things, and people collect different ways and people like different things and people want different things, that it's so much fun because of that, because there's so much in that sense only. There's so much diversity of what people like do within the hobby that it's really a lot of fun. And I like that I'll never get anybody to agree on one thing ever, period. Like it'll never happen. And maybe redemptions suck, but like that's it, right? But even then you'll have somebody who's like, oh, but they're kind of necessary if I want to get, it's like this.
Yeah. That's me.
It's fine, right? But it's cool because like I love seeing that. I love like sort of like picking people's brains and getting to see how they collect and how they do things. And I read every comment. Like sometimes there's hundreds of comments, and sometimes I'll go to bed and I won't read them till the next morning. But I read every single comment, and that comes throughout card chat. And maybe I like, it might not seem like that, but I try to like most of them because at least when I like them, I know where I left off. So when I go to read them the next morning, I know where to start again. But it's really fun, and I really enjoy it.
I think it's really fun too. I am one of those weird people that will give the shortest answer possible, and not like mean to do it that way, but like I find myself, you'll be like asking a question and I'll just be like, yes, and not, go into detail. And I feel bad, but it's just like one of those weird personality things I have. But I look forward to it every Wednesday because, like you said, it is an engagement, but everyone is, I'm sure it's happened, but I've never seen like disrespect or hate or anything. I mean, you could say like, oh, I hate how Topps did this, or I hate, Panini's redemptions. That's different than the hate I'm talking about, or it's directed towards like another collector or just like nastiness. But it's such a fun thing.
That's it. I try to keep it positive, like mm-hmm. I'm not all about that negativity. There's enough of that within the hobby. There's too much drama, and I try to avoid that kind of stuff.
Yeah. My buddy Che and I, when we did our show together, we were trying to talk about like the hobby in general, like have a hobby show, the Tom Che show. And it was like, we got to a point where we were just like, we're so burned out just trying to talk and keep up with all the hobby news, because the hobby news is just all negativity, especially this year. We've had like major crazy things happen like every week or twice a week, and it's just draining. And so
this year's been nuts.
It's just try to stay on the other side. Do you mind if we talk about your husband, Dan, real quick?
No.
Because, he's a writer.
I like him. I could talk about him.
Well, so, I asked people before, like, is there anything off limits? Some people are like, I don't want to talk about my personal life, or like you said, it's all about me. But talk about him is about you too, because he's a great writer too. And I just kind of want to know, like, what's it like to find someone that has like the interests that are so similar to you? Because like he's a sports guy, he's a writer, you're a sports person and a writer, so.
Yeah. So we met back when we were both working at the Press of Atlantic City. It's a newspaper, and he worked in like features and news. I worked in sports. And I kind of told a story the other day, and like we knew of each other. We knew each other, but like his like sort of like opening was like I was freelancing for Rebecca at the time, and his opening was like, "Hey, I opened this box of Topps Update and I pulled this card." And I'm like, "Oh, baseball cards, let's talk," I'm like so excited because like somebody else wants to talk about baseball cards,
Yeah.
So that's how we started talking. But what's cool is like even still to this day, like back then I would send him like things like articles I'd work on, and he would like read them over for me, and he would help me be a better writer. And even to this day it's the same thing. Like we bounce ideas off of each other. He'll write, because he has a newsletter as well, Dan Good Stuff, because his name is Dan Good, and he will like send me his posts, and I'll read through it, and I'll send him my stuff and I'll read through it. And it's really great because we get to bounce ideas off of each other. And I think we make each other sort of like better writers in the sense like. So sorry, I saw something weird on the.
Oh, that's just me.
Light. I don't know if it was like the computer, like.
Oh. I just think it's super neat, because I follow both of you, and I read, if you guys post like articles, I'm like, yeah, I got to read this. And I think the last one I saw of Dan's was, about the baseball player that was his friend that passed away, and it was sad, but it was like, man, it's such a good article.
He's
like
such a wonderful writer. He really
did a very good job, like remembering his friend and talking about it. So, my wife, she was.
I'm going to talk. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, my wife's an English major, so she likes to read over all the stuff I do, because she's like, I could take your robot words and turn them into something a human would say. And I'm like, okay, that, if it makes me.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. No, and he actually, Dan actually also wrote a book that's coming out in May. It's a biography on Ken Caminiti. And it's I read it. It's fantastic, and I'm not just saying that because he's my husband. I cried, and I cry over everything, and I never cry over books, but I'll cry over like TV commercials. And I cried reading this book. Like, it was utterly fantastic. It's called Playing Through the Pain, and
she's sitting here with me, and
it's such a wonderful book.
Ken Caminiti is one of those. My cousin. He's a musician. He lives in Arizona, but he was, a Padres fan because we have a lot of family in San Diego. But Ken Caminiti was his favorite player. And I remember just watching him, and I didn't really like or dislike Ken Caminiti, but, it was just kind of like, he was one of those cool dudes to watch. And then you kind of realize like why. It's like, well, he's kind of a crazy guy, and put everything he had into the game. So yeah, it's really good. I'm actually looking forward to it. I think I'm going to get a copy, like I said, for my cousin, because I think my cousin will appreciate it.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a very good book. Again, I'm not just saying that. Like, he interviewed like 400 people. He's been working on this for longer than our son has been alive. Like,
wow,
this was literally like a life's work over here that he put together, and it's it's very good, and I can't wait for it to come out in May.
Yeah, May. Everyone get that book. If not, well, I mean, we'll get it later. So, what is the ideal? Like, what's the most fun? Sooz wants to have fun. What does Sooz do to have fun?
I want to sleep. Like, I'm so tired all the time. I just want to take a nap.
Yeah, I feel that. You said, you sent me a message like, hey, do you have that link yet? And I'm just like, wiping the sleep out of my eyes for my nap because I'm so tired. I was like, it's the Tom show. I roll out of bed 5 minutes before the show.
Yeah. I like to go out to eat. Like, honestly, like I do. I enjoy having a meal with somebody, and just like, that's how I feel like I connect with people. Like, I like going out to eat, and that's probably it. I don't want to do anything anymore. I don't want to go anywhere, and not because of COVID. I'm just like old and tired, and I'm just
I
I'm
feel
like,
you.
oh, this game starts at 7 o'clock at night. That means I'm not gonna be home till like midnight. Ugh, like that's a lot out of me. It's taking a lot out of me. It's asking a lot. So, but I like to go out to eat. That's how but if for myself, I like to read books. I'm a big reader. I love reading books. Um, yeah, those are probably my big things. Like I love to read. I love to personally write, not just like my newsletter or anything like that. I actually
Mhm.
like to write fiction as well. Um, and yeah, and I like food.
I love food.
It's so
Everyone
good.
can kind of tell.
I mean, I'm
uh,
not you'll see a full body shot here. I'm not I'm like, I love food, so.
what's your favorite? What's your go-to when Dan's
Um,
like, "Hey, let's go out and have some fun"?
so one of my favorite places is it's not too far. We moved last year and we moved closer to this place. Hooray. They do these like wings and burgers. And not just any wings. It's not like I can go anywhere and just have wings. And this one specific place is so good. And like it's so good that like on my birthday, like, where do you want to go? I'm like, I want to go have wings and burgers. That's what I want for my birthday. And it's like, oh, we could go anywhere. I'm like, yep, correct.
Yep.
We can. And I'm gonna go there instead. I like steak. I like meat. So um, I like
That
pizza.
reminds
I
me.
like everything that's terrible for you, obviously. Like,
My 6-year-old niece, who I said I did the YouTube show once, I was over at my mom's hanging out. My mom watches them like every Saturday night just to get time with them, and she's like, "Ellie, what do you want for dinner?" And Ellie was like 5 or 6 at the time. She just went, "Meat." That just reminded me that, it's just people
yeah.
like what they like. Wings. I think my wife and I, we think I'm allergic to chicken, so I kind of wanted to end my
Oh,
life because I'm like, I can't live without wings. But if you cut it down, like I cut it down to like once a month, but that's like my favorite go-to is like, and she loves them too. So that was our thing. Like, hey, let's go get some wings. It's like, all right, yeah,
oh,
that's
yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, my son, again, he's 5, right? He turned 5 this summer. And there's this really fancy steakhouse in our area. It's called Benjamin's Steakhouse. It's like super fancy. It's like, it's one of these like Ruth's Chris, but like kind of, it's local to New York. Like there's one in New York City. There's one, I live north of New York City. There's one in our area. And we're like, hey, Dean, his name is Dean. He was like, where do you want to go for your 5th birthday? And he's like, I want to go to Benjamin's Steakhouse. And I'm like,
Chuck E. Cheese?
you want a $200 steak? Okay, like that's we're gonna pass. So how about Outback? I'm like, is that a good for you?
Oh, your kid. I love him already, man. Like it just sounds like a trip. It's so
He's
much
the
fun.
best. He's adorable. He's loving and he's super loving and he just wants to hug and kiss mommy all the time. And like he's the best. So
Oh yeah, it sounds
we have a lot
perfect.
of fun together.
So we're also in the nails club together, and we've all been. It's kind of dropped off because of the holidays. Everyone's kind of got busy, but you purchased a supernatural plate, to do little stampings
Yeah, I
on,
was just trying to think where they were, but
and I saw it, and I had to get it myself. I think mine's right here. I haven't done anything yet because my wife does my nails because I've never done my nails, but we got the little symbols, and
yeah, it's such a
I
good
saw it immediately because I'm a huge Supernatural fan too. I haven't finished watching it though because this is one of those shows that, like, my mom and my sister and my nieces were all like, "This is the best show ever." But I watched it one time with my buddy when it first came out, and he was into it. And I was like, "This is terrible." Like, I don't know what I actually remember the episode when my wife and I started the watch through completely, and I was like, "Oh, this is the episode that made me hate the show when it first came out." But then I just fell in love with it.
love that show.
I love Dean so much.
Me
Like,
too. My son's name is Dean.
yeah, Dean is yeah. My wife likes the other guy. I can't even remember his name. It's been so long. Yeah, Sam. She's like, "I'm a Sam guy. He's just tall, dark, and handsome." I was like, "Yeah, it's Dean all the way, man." So I got to go back and watch that. But like, when you say you read, do you read just like anything that interests you, or do you like stick to like a genre like fantasy or science fiction or?
Love fantasy, love science fiction. I generally read mostly like urban fantasy, but I will change it up. Like I'll read like epic fantasy and I'll read science fiction, and every once in a while I'll throw in a rom-com in there kind of thing. Yeah, that's generally what I stick to. I don't really like to read too many nonfiction books. It's just I'm like, you know what it is? I love to read things that like are not real life. I
Yes.
want to not be in real life sometimes. So like I will read fiction that is like so far away from like or the real world, and that's the kind of TV shows I like as well. Like I don't want to watch things that are real. I like
Yeah.
I have enough of the real world. Show me things that literally can never happen so that I can enjoy that. And that's what I'm going to watch. Like
Yeah,
I like
exactly.
Lucifer. That's not gonna happen.
Oh my God, I love Lucifer. I want to be Tom Ellis. And if I can't be Tom Ellis, I want to just be next to him at all times because
I love Tom Ellis as
good
well.
Lord, that guy is amazing. Yeah, it's another show. My wife was like, "This show's so great," and I was like, "Okay." And then she would just keep watching it while I was there, and then I was like, "Okay, let's go back and I'll start watching it over."
Yeah.
I haven't finished that one either because I like.
I'm very close. I haven't finished it either, but I'm very close.
She's the show person, but like you, I just want to watch a sport. Like I'm gonna browse. Oh, there's some college basketball game I know nothing about. All right, I'll throw it on. That's just how I am. So, what's your favorite science fiction book?
Hmm. I don't know. I don't really have I probably don't have a favorite science fiction book. I do enjoy reading all the Star Wars books. I don't know if that's technically science fiction or it's like space
Yeah, it
opera or
counts. I
whatever.
used to read all the old ones,
Yeah,
that old universe that they killed with the new movies, and I'm sad.
yeah, but they're like bringing all these characters back, right? Like so, like one of my favorite non sort of like Leia is my favorite character ever.
Mm.
One of my favorite sort of like non trilogy characters is Thrawn. And he was part of that old universe as well, and then they brought him back, and there's been now 6 books with him, and I actually just finished the third of like the second trilogy today. I love his character. He is, and he was also in Rebels, and I'm like
Yep.
pretty hesitant to watch. I haven't watched Rebels yet, but I'm pretty hesitant to watch it because I don't feel like his character in Rebels meshes with how he was in the books. And I have no idea this to be true because again, I did not watch, right? I have not
Mhm.
watched. But just based on like the small details I picked up here and there, and I don't want it to ruin the character for me.
Yeah. I haven't finished Rebels. I'm almost through it. I would say that yeah, the character in Rebels is not like the books version, but to me it was like, well, it's still pretty cool because that guy was a badass. And
He is a badass, but like but he's not a bad guy,
mm-mm.
and that's what bothered. It's like I feel like they made him out to be a bad guy in Rebels, and I don't like that. Like just because he's part of the Empire doesn't necessarily make him a bad guy, if that's right or wrong. But
Mhm.
like he had his own sort of like altruistic reasons for being. If you read the books, like the newer books I'm talking about, like Timothy Zahn still wrote the books. He wrote the previous ones as well. Like he had reasons for doing what he did, and I don't feel like those reasons mesh for what happened in Rebels.
I'll have to definitely check those books out because once they switched to universes, I was like, I'm done with the Star Wars books because I've read like 60, and now they're kind of not that they're meaningless because they still have meaning to the fans and people that enjoyed them, but it's like, well, it's kind of a dead
Well,
universe.
that's fair. I get that. I mean, like all the stories that happened before, like aren't true. Like, oh, okay, like Luke doesn't have all these kids, and like his wife and Leia and Han don't have 3 kids anymore, and like all that stuff. I get that. It's it was tough when Disney was like, oh, haha,
Yeah.
anymore. It's a
It
joke.
makes sense though, they got to do their own thing. They don't want to be bound to. And to be fair and to be honest, like I read 60 of those Star Wars books, and I would say 20 were like good, and 20 were okay, and 20 were like force myself to get through it because it was Star Wars,
Yeah.
So yeah, you don't want to be shackled by some bad just published books. So what about fantasy? What kind of fantasy?
So I really enjoy urban fantasy, which is essentially like people with powers and in modern day time. So it's like, there's magic and stuff, but it takes place like current times as opposed to like, like medieval times.
Mhm.
I really enjoyed that a lot. But one of my I really enjoyed Sarah J. Maas's maybe saying her name wrong, but it's like Kevin Moss, her like Throne of Glass series. That was really I didn't love the end of it, but like I really enjoyed all the books leading up to it. I'm currently not reading urban fantasy. I'm kind of reading like it takes place in the future, but it's not like futuristic or science fictiony. It's more of a cop like mystery, kind of like a cop thriller kind of book.
Mhm.
The author's J.D. Robb, which is actually not J.D. Robb. It's a pen name for Nora Roberts. And I just find I'm like on the third book, and there's like 50 books in the series. I love series, by the way. I want to like immerse myself into an entire sort of like ecosystem of what's going on. So there's like 50 books in this series, and I'm on book 3. So
That's exciting.
yeah, I'm like, this is never gonna end. This is great. Like I just finished another series, and now I'm drawing a blank. Alona Andrews is the author. I'm drawing a blank on the character's name, but that was like 7 or 8 books in the series. So I'm a big fan of series.
Yeah, same. That's what I tell people is they're like, "Oh, you should read this book," and I'm like, "How many of them are there?" And they're like, "Just one." I was like,
Yeah.
"I like 10 plus, because then I have something else to read." And then I get to where I am now, where I'm like in 4 or 5 different fantasy series, like book 5 here, book 4 there, book 3 here, and I'm just like, I'm kind of overwhelmed, and I just want to read something simple because
What
I read the heist fantasy stuff usually, the old whatever epic stuff.
which ones specifically? Like what?
So my favorite series that I've read was the Sword of Truth series, and they did a TV show on like ABC Family that was called The Seeker. I like those books. I'm not going to remember the author's name. I'm terrible at names. The Wheel of Time. They just made that TV series, but Robert
I'm trying
Jordan.
to read that, and for some reason, like I couldn't get into the first book. I still keep trying to read it. Every once in a while, like I go back to it, and I just can't get through it.
It was easier because I started it when I was a teen boy, and it's about teen boys and teen girls, too, to be fair. But yeah, it was easier then. I probably would have a harder time now. Then there's a series that I'm in the middle of now. It's called the Malazon Book of the Fallen is this series. And I think it's, I forgot what the first book was called, something on the moon. But it's like, so it was like an archaeologist and his buddies were playing Dungeons and Dragons, and then they created their own little world based on it.
Mhm.
And then they were like, well, let's just write books. And it's like very detailed and with like history. I mean, fake history, but real history and weird magic. And it's really hard to read. And I like Brandon Sanderson. He has a lot of series.
I've read a bunch of his books, yeah.
And he's my fast and easy writer. Even though his books might be 1,000 pages, I could finish 1,000-page Brandon Sanderson. And, a quarter of the time I could do 1,000 pages of like that Malazon book. And science fiction series, I read all the Dune books. Well, before they started getting like super, super, super prequel-y. I read the 3 prequel series and then the couple after. But then I didn't get, they're still writing Dune books. And I'm just like, I got the ending. We don't need to go through all the paths.
Yeah.
And I really like the Enders series. And I never finished it because it was just getting just like a slog after a while. But Ender's Game, then there was the Ender, and then Bean from that series, he had his own book, and I love both of them. The Ender's Game series part was like real weird sci-fi, which was really cool, and then the Bean stuff was like a kind of like one of those Jack Ryan types, like I'm an agent and I'm going to uncover this plot and save the world, but it's also science fiction-y a little bit, but not too much. So I kind of like that. So, but my wife, she's really into like the urban fantasy. She likes the comic book. Was it Fables, where they do like there was the fairy tale characters in the like modern world, and she reads stuff like that, and she's really into fantasy. And like I said, she was an English major, and while she was getting her degree, she worked at Borders, so she was just like, study English, and then I just read books. And so and we did that. That was just a great fit for us because she introduced me to like a lot of other stuff that I normally wouldn't have read, like when True Blood came out, it was like, oh, well, there's these Sookie Stackhouse books, and it's like, okay, cool. And it's a lot different than the show. And
Yeah,
actually, I
I
think
read
it's
those
so
books
much
too.
better. I love
Yeah.
the book so much more. It's just, I don't know. And
I watched like the first season and I was like, actually, crazy enough, I was like that way with Game of Thrones. I read all those books and clearly like the show went further than the books,
yeah,
but I didn't watch the show because I didn't actually enjoy it as much as the books.
that's what happened. My wife and I, we watched the first season and that was it. And people are like, well, why? And I was like, well, when you're reading the book and it's like, oh, character whatever is talking to character Littlefinger, and they're in a house of ill repute, and there's acts going on in the background, and that's it in the book. Like people are having sex in the background of this story while they're talking. You're like, okay. And then you get to that show, the scene on the show, and it's like
It's a
10
lot.
straight minutes of nudity, and you're like, this is a lot, man. Like, in the book, you don't even pay attention to that because, like, you're just like, that's background stuff. It doesn't matter. But in the show, they're like, these characters are talking, but we're gonna like zoom in on the orgy in the background, and then and it was just like, my wife was like, it's kind of cool, and I was like, yeah, the show is. It's like they put too much detail on the stuff that I never pay attention to, and I love that book series. That's never going to be finished, and yeah, I'm sad about that because those some of my because I got into the Robert Jordan stuff because of a friend, and then it's just friends recommend stuff, so that's why I'm asking. Like, I'm passionate because like. Sooz is going to tell me a book series that I'm going to want to read. And I'm going to go back and check them all out.
I started reading, like, I read a book one by Charles Sheffield last year, Summertide. That was interesting. I didn't continue. Like, I just read book one. I'm going to read book two, but I was like, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah,
that's more science fiction-y and like takes place in like planets that don't exist and stuff like that.
Yeah. I was reading the Sookie Stackhouse books, and then my wife got me to read some. It was about a werewolf gal who's like a mechanic. I forgot that series.
Oh, I love those books. Mercy
yes,
love those books.
I enjoyed them.
I will read it the day it comes out. I will buy it and I will.
I read the first one or two, and just didn't keep going because it's just back and forth with them. But I really enjoyed that, and then. It's kind of funny because I had a friend, she recommended me a book, and I went to like the science fiction fantasy section in the bookstore, and I was like, okay, I can't find this book. And I asked the lady, and she's like, oh, it's in romance. And I was like, this is where I am now. Okay, cool. And I went, it's something like vampire hunter lady and this vampire named Bones or something. And yeah, it wasn't a bad book, but it was just like
Anita Blake.
Yes, I think maybe it was.
Yeah, I've read some of those books, and in those books too, like it started out pretty good, and then it started getting like really raunchy, the later books, and so I've heard. I actually didn't read them. I was like, oh, I should go back, and then I'm like reading reviews, and people were like, it got weird. Like,
and I don't enjoy reading that. I don't. I'm like, oh, Tom's a dude. He's got an OnlyFans. He's a weirdo pervert, and it's like, but I don't like. That shoved in my face all the time. It's like, that's why I kind of like Brandon Sanderson, his Mormon upbringing. He just doesn't write about that kind of sex or like detailed sex. So it's just kind of nice to not, because I'm not a romantic, I guess. I
don't mind it. Like, I just don't want it to be the whole book. Like, I don't mind it in the book. I don't like if it's like part of the story. I just don't. I'm just like, if I want to read that, I could go read that. But I just don't want it to be the whole book. So like the book I mentioned, I just looked it up earlier. It was Kate Daniels series by Alona Andrews, and that one, like, she is a sort of like magical being, which you discover more throughout the book later on, and she lives in a world of like shapeshifters and vampires and other things, and is and the world is full of magic, but it's also not, and so like times the world goes between like regular and then magic, is like the two things are sort of trying to coexist with each other. It's interesting.
Yeah, no, I'll have to check that out because that's how. Well, never mind. I was gonna say that's how one of the series I read ended, and I was like, well, I don't want to, talk about that because maybe someone's reading that series or something. But I we probably lost our audience nerding out on books, so but that's okay because we're here to learn about Sooz, and Sooz obviously loves to read. She loves to write. She loves the baseball. What else does Sooz love?
Um, those are really the big things, like other than that, like I, spend time with my family, and that doesn't really leave a lot of time for lots of other things. So cards, work, family, reading, writing, sports,
Yeah, you need a nap. I can. No wonder you just want to sleep.
napping.
um, what was it like when? So we know you have a Alan and Ginter card. Talk about that. Like, how did that happen, and how did you feel when you first saw it?
I'm gonna see if it's here on my desk because I was looking at it recently. So the way Topps did it at the time, I don't know if they still currently do it this way, was that they randomly pick names out of a hat, essentially. They would include 10 Topps employees in Allen and Ginter every year, and they would pick names out of a hat, and if your name got picked, ta-da, you got an Allen and Ginter card. So I wonderfully got picked in 2017 and super duper excited about it, as one could imagine. And when I got the cards, like, it was awesome. Like, because they gave me, besides signing them, they also gave me like 50. Oh, here we go. Like, I knew they were around here somewhere.
That is so cool.
50 to like 100 of just the inside, the little card inside here.
Yeah.
So, I signed those for like a bunch of people who, wanted cards at the National that year. So that was like, I was like a celebrity for 5 minutes. So that was fun.
You're still kind of a celebrity, at least to me.
It's really cool. Like, I look, it's my profile picture on Twitter, right? Like, it's my profile picture on my Slack at work. Like, I think it's awesome. It's by far like one of the coolest things I've ever had in my entire life. I love it. Like, it's super cool. And what's even more crazy is, even though like I have one, the only 10 exist in the wild, right, of the framed cards. But I know people who bought them because they wanted them, and like they didn't go for cheap either. That's the crazier part about it. So like the fact that like people actually wanted my card, like, it, to me, it's like, other than like my husband, like but it's kind of cool.
That no, that is super cool. And I know, people would want it because they like you, but then they're also like, there's only 10, so like it's super collectible. And if you're one of those like completionists, because I know for like Panini Contenders, they randomly put in like rookie autographs that are like, oh, there's only 37 of these. Good luck collecting the whole set. But and it's like, well, then this crazy unknown player that's like a backup quarterback for the Cowboys, it's like $1,000 card because someone wants to complete the whhole set. But that's just like, I'm just in awe. It's just like so cool to like, because I think so many of us, want to work in the hobby in some point. And I think that was a lot of people's dream when they came back, like, oh, I want to be a content creator, or I want to, find a way into the hobby or become a breaker. And, and then, the Allen and Ginter, like, Topps, like, who should we have celebrity wise being Allen and Ginter? And people are like, listing their favorite celebrities. But then there's also like, people want to see themselves or other people. And, like Ivan, like, why doesn't Watch the Breaks have a Topps card, And it's just like, it's just a dream for so many people, especially when you're a kid, and we'll watch the Peanuts Christmas special. Does he have a picture on a bubblegum card, And then no, he doesn't. So we don't matter. But Sooz has a picture on a bubblegum card. So she's very important. That's just so awesome.
Yeah, it's super cool.
What what did you like as a kid besides baseball? Like, were there cartoons or anything that you really enjoyed?
Yeah, I mean, I watched Saturday morning. Not so much like I don't remember as a kid. As a kid, like I liked He-Man and She-Ra. As a kid. I liked the Smurfs. Getting older, I like watching like the NBC shows like Saved by the Bell and California Dreams, like on NBC. But I played lots of sports too. Like I played sports. I was volleyball, basketball, softball. Loved going to the beach in the summertime. So I did a lot of stuff like that.
Someone asked who your favorite superhero is.
Batgirl. Yeah. And Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Does she count as a superhero?
To me, yes.
Okay, and Buffy.
Which version of Batgirl?
I loved watching like the old one with Adam West. Like whenever she would, she would be on the show. Like in the beginning, they would have her like on her little motorcycle, like in part of the opening credits. So I was always psyched when I saw that happening. When I was I think when I was about 16, they came out with like the movie, and Alicia Silverstone was, Batgirl. I was so mad because I was like, I should have been Batgirl, not her. It could have been me. And I was so mad. Like, how can they not have picked me to be Batgirl?
That is funny. Man, that movie was so bad.
It should have made me Batgirl.
Yeah, it would have been better with you as Batgirl, 100%. Also, if you got rid of Arnold, that probably would have helped a lot too. Yeah, just the combination of like, hey, let's try to be a serious 90s superhero movie but let's keep the camp of the 60s show, but let's try to merge it instead of like picking one lane. It just did not work out for me. Because in the comic books, Batgirl doesn't have an easy life. Some bad things have happened to her. So that's why I was just asking, because like The Killing Joke is a very popular comic book that involves her, and it's actually like a very tough read. If you've read it, I don't know if you've read it or not. But
yeah, I've read some of her background stories in general too, and like I got a book of hers one year that Dan had bought me, like just about her history and her stories and stuff like that. So like I haven't specifically read that comic, but I've read about her stories.
Yeah, that's I recommend that one. It's the Joker, and involves Batman and Batgirl, Batwoman, whatever she wants to be called. I don't remember, because I actually haven't read like a lot of new comics. So I used to be into comics in the 90s, and I would read Batman and X-Men and all that fun stuff, and you had the cool cartoons. So for like a comic book fan, it was easy to. The 90s were great because you had the X-Men, and then you had the Spider-Man, then you had Batman, then you had Superman, and they were all just like fantastic to get into. And now kids today, they're spoiled. They have all these fantastic movies that just keep coming out. Does your kid, is he into that yet, or is he just a little too young?
Yet. Like we tried a while ago watching, like starting at the very beginning with Captain America. I think that's what we started with. I know it wasn't the first one, but he got scared very quickly. So we're like, okay, we're not ready for this yet, and that's fine. Like we're still into Disney Pixar movies, so we'll continue watching.
I have my wife's niece, but her side, their little girl likes the Encanto.
Yeah, we just watched that.
I haven't had a chance to see it, but my wife was babysitting her the other day, and she's like, we watched it 3 times. But I still haven't seen it all the way through because of the distractions and stuff. And so that's the thing with me. It's like I don't like to be distracted watching the movies. I'm a movie watcher. I don't like watching TV shows. I don't, I like watching sports because that you cannot pay attention to the whole time. But like a movie, I'm like, okay, everyone shut their phones off. No talking. We're going to focus on the movie. And with kids, there's just no way.
I'm the opposite. I don't want to dedicate I don't want to have to sit there and think like, oh man, I have to dedicate 2.5 hours on something. Meanwhile, if it's a TV show, I will binge 3 to 4 episodes, and I've already dedicated more time to that. But at least I know there's a set time where, like, if I want to stop, I can stop because I just finished watching the TV show. But the thought of like having to dedicate like 2 hours to something. That's a lot of commitment that I can't give to something.
That's hilarious because I'm the opposite. I'm a movie guy. I can't binge TV shows after I could go about three episodes, if it's an hour show, and then I'm burned out. So I just tell people I have a movie time attention span when it comes to shows and movies. It's like you give me maybe 3 hours, but after that, I'm done. And there have been times when I've been caught up in stuff to where I have binged a whole show over a weekend. I think one of them was that superhero series on Amazon,
The
The
Boys.
Boys. Yes. My wife and I, we really got into that one weekend and we just binged that whole thing. And, it was fun. And there's a couple other shows back, and I can't remember what they were, but Brooklyn Nine-Nine, my wife was into that show. And that's a show that I didn't think I would like. But then, you just start watching it and you're like, this is just such an amazing, simple, fun, but not, there's also more than just silliness to it, but such a great show. And we binged that. So, because, that show came out when Andy Samberg was still kind of like, okay, he did some funny stuff, but he's kind of annoying to me still. And then watching that show, my whole perspective on him changed. And then he had that movie and it was just fantastic. So, it's great. Sorry, just getting a little feedback there. I was just like, well, Sooz, is there anything else you want to talk about or anything you want to share?
Not necessarily. I'm like,
I'm just kind of, we've talked so much about everything that I had questions for. I guess I need to do a little more Sooz research next time if you want to come back on and we could talk some more. But if you're good, I think we've got an hour. I think we can call it there.
Okay, that sounds great. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I'll say this, it was very different than my other conversations I had. We never get into books. So I enjoy talking about books, and I'm happy about that.
I love books. I will talk about books, but like I said, I'm bad with author names and I'm bad with some stuff.
Me too.
But
I keep track of, I use Goodreads and I keep track of everything because
that's good.
I have no idea otherwise.
But I'm like, that werewolf mechanic girl, and you're like, I know that one.
Oh, that one, I love that series. I do. I love that series. I can't remember the name of Harris. I think her name, Charlene Harris. Yeah, I was like, it'll come to me. I love that series. And she actually has another series as well that's part of the same universe, Alpha and Omega. That's the name of the series. It's a little different, but I like it too. It's part of the same universe, so I enjoy the fact that I'll read whatever. It's if you tell me it's part of the same universe, great. give it to me because I want to devour everything within it.
That's how I am. I just love to get lost. Because I do. I admit that I suffer from depression a lot, and you just want to escape from the world. Not that the world is terrible, but it's sometimes the real world is harder to deal with, and you're just like, okay,
100%.
I've done all the stuff I need to do in the real world. Now I need to relax, so I'm gonna just disappear into this world of fantasy or science fiction or crime thriller or whatever it is, and just lose myself. And that's what my show. It's we're not here just to talk about baseball cards or the hobby or sports. That's how we know each other, but it's also I want to get to know my friends better. And now I know that you and we could talk books, and that makes me so happy because I try to talk to Che and Eric Hecker, and they're like, what's The Hobbit? And you're just like, get out of here. Che's like, well, I did read The Hobbit, but I don't know any of that Lord of the Rings stuff. And I'm like, get out of here. Yes. But people like what they like, but it's we have that similar interest now, and I'm going to be hitting you up for book recommendations once if I can finish the series that I'm on now.
I read about 3 books a month, I'll say, because I keep track on Goodreads, like I said, what I read, and I read about 35 books a year. And but you're when I'm not in a good mood or things are bothering me in real life, I could read about 3 books in about a week. So I joke with my husband. I'm like, if you ever want to tell what kind of mood I'm in, you literally could just track my book reading. If it's faster than a book, a week, I'm clearly not in a good mental space because I just needed to take a break from everything in the real world. So
yeah, I go in circles of what I like to do with my spare time. And those circles are kind of like, okay, do I want to play video games? Do I want to watch like movies? Do I want to watch shows? Or do I want to read? And it's not like the circle has the same, each point has the same length. Sometimes it's like, okay, I want to play video games and I'll be heavy into video games for 2 months. And then it's like, okay, we're going to watch shows for, 3 or 4 months. But then when I get into books, it's usually like I will read. I haven't read like in a month, actually. I think my Kindle's dead, but it's like I would force myself to read a little bit every night. And then I'd get to a part in a book where I just devour, or like binging, you just finish it. It's like, oh, there's 500 pages left in this book. I don't care. This is my priority. This is what I'm into. And I, like you, I wasn't into the Harry Potter books when they came out. My nieces liked them. And I used to tease them because the movies I thought were a little silly, and that's all I knew them from. But then I busted my knee cliff diving once, and I was like laid up, and they're like, "Here, read these books, Uncle Tom." And I was like, "Okay," and I read it, and I was like, "Okay, cool." And then I remember like the last two, those came out when there, and I was like, "Okay, take them home and just read it in like one night," and it's just something that being in Gunnison, Colorado, where I grew up, it is considered one of the coldest places in the continental United States, sometimes even colder than Alaska, like 40 below sometimes. But, not all the time, but really cold and really dry, high elevation desert. So to me, like some of my best memories are I'm in my bed, it's cold, but I have a blanket and I have a book, and I'm just like, that's a happy place for me. It's like I have like a kid, but I'm like, 30, just, reading a book. And that's something that my wife and she has a harder time now since with her disability, because she has a hard time focusing on, reading books. She's got this kind of like comic book app that she uses now, so she's just devours all of that because it's a little easier for her, because she doesn't have to pay a comic book's like 28 pages, where a book is 200 to 1200 depending on the series. But so but we still share that passion. And then like you're like, oh, I like to read, and I was just instantly like, yes. I haven't talked about books on my show yet, and it's great because this is what the show's about. We get to learn more about who you are and what motivates you. And what motivates you is Pokemon cards for your kids, good books, and writing, and the Yankees. So
yeah,
I do want to.
Sorry, I like reading good books too, because I've been working on my own like urban fantasy fiction book for 10 years now. And, I finished probably 2 drafts of it now. I think I'm in the last phase of it finally. But reading good books allows me to like see things that like, oh, that was really good. Oh, I really like that. Oh, that's how to do like a certain, like explain a certain thing, or to convey a certain picture or something like that. So I read books now, one, like you said, like for an escape, but I also read them as like a learning tool as well for my own writing.
Absolutely. I am that way with books, and I'm also that way with movies, because some people, like, why did you go watch that terrible movie? Everyone knew it was going to be terrible, but then you're like, but sometimes terrible movies have an idea or a little plot thing that would work well with what you're writing. Because I have story ideas that I've had for like 20 years now, and they're actually urban fantasy books too. One's about a gal who's like a witch serial killer, and a guy that's hunting her down. And then also in my same universe, it's a guy it's a kind of a heaven and hell type of deal. Let me tell you about this book real quick. This story that I'm working on, it's about a guy. He gets the powers of an angel, and he gets the powers of a demon. So in this series that I want to write, whenever someone is contemplating suicide, an angel shows up and a demon shows up, and they fight for the influence of that person. Yeah. And it's not to be like, like say the angel wins, then the angel can like, tell them, on their spiritual level, like, no, it's okay, it's good. And not necessarily, that won't necessarily save that person, because that person makes their own decision. But, on the flip side, the demon's like, cursing them. So in this universe, anytime someone's contemplating, they show up and they battle. And then in my story, a guy gets powers of both. So when someone's contemplating suicide, because I suffer from the depression, so it kind of just all rolls together. He can show up as an angel or a demon, so like if he wants, an angel shows up, he can be like, okay, I'm out of here, or a demon shows up, he'll fight. So that's like another urban series that I'm, trying to write. But, it's also, then this was before I, started watching Lucifer, because this was like 20 years ago. But it's like you see Lucifer and you're like, I like some of these things. I'm not going to steal them, but it's world building. It helps you world build a little bit. So I'm actually excited. I hope you'll let me know when that book comes out, because I want to read it.
I don't know like I pretend like in my brain it's going to come out one day, but I'm like,
even if you don't, I would love to read it. I don't know if you follow him, Paul Lesko, the hobby attorney. He wrote a book, Gastric Bypass, and I read it.
Yeah,
and he mentioned it because I was like, I read Fight Club, and I've read some of Chuck Palahniuk's other stuff or whatever, and Brent Eleni. I read some of his stuff because my older brothers were into him. And he's like, well, you might like my book. It's kind of like that. And I did. And I was like, when's the second one coming out? He's like, oh, in like 10 years. I'm like,
exactly.
I'm going to bug you every day and tell you write that book.
I know how that feels. Like, I want my book to be a series as well, similar kind of like the Mercy Thompson stuff, where like, there's a thread through the series, but like each book will sort of be its own kind of like standalone thing, right? But it's I don't sleep, so I'm trying to find the time to do all these things.
Yeah.
Mine it's an urban fantasy, because that's what I love the most. And it was interesting when you mentioned like the heaven and hell, because like my main character, she's a child of a demon and an angel, but she doesn't know that, and she has powers. She knows she has these sort of like powers, but doesn't know necessarily why she has them or how they've manifested. And then she discovers it, like the truth about herself through the course of the book, thus like learning all these people have been lying to her, like because they wanted to keep her safe. And it's like it's a lot of drama, because now she doesn't trust anybody because everybody's been lying to her about her origin and who she is. And
I want to read it now. You should send me a copy of. Traditionally, that's called a Nephilim.
Yes. So that's.
Okay. I didn't know if you were going to use like that.
I don't know if well, it was funny because like I don't even have a title for it. That's been the hardest part, trying to figure out a title. But like I was like, I want a title, but then like the XX series, I was like, what if it's like the Nephilim series or like something along that nature? And I'm still trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, because you could have a book. Garden of the Moon is the Malazon Book of the Fallen, book 1. Gardens of the Moon, I think it's something like that. But they never mention like this is the Malazon Book of the Fallen series. They're just like, and it's like, because that's a terrible name for a series, Like, have you read Malazon Book of the Fallen? And people are like, what the hell are you talking about? That's a mouthful. It turns me off right away. And you're like, yeah, because there's like 5 pages of grass description in one book. So yeah, I can see that. So this happens on the Tom Show a lot. I'm like, hey, we're going to say goodbye. And then, we get so caught up again in something else. So Sooz, I admit, I thought you were like a very serious person. And you intimidated me because like, why would a serious person put up with my bullshit? Sorry for my language, but you're not. And that's why I love talking to people, because first impressions, they're wrong, because clearly you're not like a serious person. I mean, not that you're not serious, but you have a side that is, I just dig. It's like talking to my sister, honestly. It's so cool. So Sooz, I really appreciate you coming on. Anytime you want to come on again and talk, especially if you're promoting anything, I tell people like, you're welcome back anytime, of course. But if you're promoting anything or want to talk about something or bring awareness to something, I can do a special show any day of the week to accommodate you. And I'm excited to look. I just want to talk books with you. And so I'm going to be tweeting at you here shortly.
It's all good. I love it. I don't really talk about books with a lot of people. Not that I don't hide it, but it's just like, same thing. Like there's just not a lot of people around me who are kind of into the same stuff. So
yeah, well, that's too bad, because I don't know. Like I said, nothing makes me happier than like a cold bed and a warm book. a Kindle now.
I like a warm bed. I'm so cold.
Yeah, it's my wife, she's got all the metal in her back now, so she gets like super cold. And I know like women, they tend to be cooler. If you share an office, there's guys with like undoing their ties and they're like, oh, it's like 70 degrees in here. And then there's like heaters under there, the women's
heat
desks.
Up, please. The heat.
So well, Sooz, thank you. I keep saying it, but like this was so much fun because we did the traditional hobby talk, but then we just both got like super passionate about books, and that's great to know. And I would not have known that, unless you came on the show, because like I knew about Supernatural. I think I knew about Lucifer, but you just talking about it got me excited. And I'm telling you guys, if you like tall, dark, sexy men, Lucifer's the show for you. And not that it's like just like thirsting over hot guys. It's actually like a really good show and really fun, the police procedural, but with the hottest man to have ever lived. Twitter has a gif of him coming out of like a pool all ripped with like the bourbon.
I've never seen that.
I'm gonna tweet it to you right now.
I didn't look at that one today.
All right, Sooz, I'll give you the last word. Anything you want to say to the people out there?
Thanks everybody. I really enjoyed this. It was really cool. Follow me on social media. This is @YanksChick. I'm on Twitter and Instagram, and buy my husband's book, Playing Through the Pain with Ken Caminiti.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to play my theme music, and then you could just hop on out, Sooz. Bye, everyone. Thank you.